And I give the call to the member for Warringah.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. And I welcome the opportunity to discuss this very important review. And I first want to start by thanking the committee, the secretarial staff that I know worked very hard in bringing it together. We had a number of public hearings, a significant number of submissions, and also we did a number of in-person visits around the country. And it was incredibly instructive to see the submissions by so many in that process. I would also like to thank some organisations in Warringah that are doing a fantastic job of addressing the problems of plastics and microplastics. Of course, Warringah is a place with many waterways. We have Manly Dam, we have many harbour coves and inlets, and then we have beaches. And so we can see firsthand that impact plastics and microplastics have on our water and environment and waterways. And as this report identifies, we are drowning in waste. So I would like to start by thanking organisations like AUSMAP, who in fact made submissions and gave evidence to the inquiry, but also who actually started one of their programs in Warringah around East Esplanade in Manly. And it's a program where they really monitor how much plastics and microplastics they find in that area. It is citizen science, it is volunteer-based, and they turn up on a very regular basis to monitor that plastic content. Other organisations like Strawcool and Pittwater Eco Adventures are doing a phenomenal job on a very regular basis of cleaning up some of those harbour beaches. Because unfortunately, maybe differently to surf beaches, the harbour beaches accumulate a huge amount of rubbish and plastics that's come off boats and, I guess, recreational activities in our harbour. As this report has identified, plastic is everywhere. It's overrunning our streets, our parks, our beaches, our coastlines. This report, appropriately titled Drowning in Waste, lays out quite plainly that we need to take action. Australians consume more single-use plastic per person than any other country in the world, bar Singapore. Now, I know a lot of Australians think that we're doing good. We think we're good global citizens, and we think we're quite engaged with recycling and being plastic aware. But this statistic shows we are not doing as well as we think. So I repeat, we are the highest, except for Singapore, we consume the most single-use plastic per person than any other country. So clearly we have to do better. In 2020-2021, Australia used 3.79 million tonnes of plastic, of which only 14% was recycled. So we are huge contributors to this problem. Around 130,000 tonnes of plastic leak into the environment annually, including into our oceans and waterways. There are currently 150 million metric tonnes of plastic of pollution in the ocean, and by 2040, global plastic pollution is expected to double, with the ocean's plastic pollution expected to more than quadruple. By 2050, the amount of plastic waste in the environment could increase to 26 billion tonnes if no action is taken. And it gets worse. The breakdown of plastics into microplastics poses further risks to marine life, leads to blockages in their digestive system, malnutrition and death. And it really is no surprise that many are so concerned. Plastic pollution is a global crisis, and it's harming our environment, our wildlife, and ultimately us. There isn't much data yet on showing the impact on human life of that ingestion of plastic, but the ingestion is happening. So key facts, as highlighted in the report, are that we have a massive issue. There's a huge problem that we must act on because we are quite literally drowning in plastic. The key recommendation of this report is for the National Plastics Plan to be updated. In particular, the report notes that the plan should contain reporting and transparency measures to monitor progress and accountability among all stakeholders and be based on an overarching circular economy strategy, and it needs to be developed with stakeholders to promote sustainable practices and recycling and responsible waste management. And, of course, transition plans. Now, this is incredibly urgent, and our current National Plastic Plan is a disjointed one, with some goals included in the original plan already achieved prior to the plan's development. So it sort of begs the question of what is it really achieving. Stakeholders told our committee that they were lukewarm at best about the current plan, and so a new plan must urgently be developed in consultation with state and territory governments, industry and community, coordinated nationally to prioritise industry accountability. So most importantly, though, I feel strongly that what we need is the problem around plastics and the responsibility must shift back to manufacturers. The committee found that manufacturers find it cheaper and easier to use virgin polymers rather than recycled materials in plastic products, which means we are continually making the problem worse. We are adding more and more and more plastic to the system. So this use of virgin polymers, so that new plastics, is a problem. Virgin polymers are manufactured using unrecycled and unused materials. It's ultimately oil, right? This is big oil wanting to maintain the addiction on plastics so that we continue to use their product. But technology has moved. We know we can use much more recycled content. And so that must be the direction we need to go in. We heard submissions to the committee that believe the federal government should implement a tax or a levy that specifically targets virgin plastic to discourage its consumption or use and promote the use of recycled materials. Whilst the committee has recommended investigating such a levy on the use of virgin polymer, it did fall short from actually requiring that become mandatory. I'm concerned that for a long time we've been waiting for this. We've had industry voluntary codes, and I believe time's up, that we've had decades of lacklustre action from manufacturers and industry, and it's time actually for them to have their house in order. The government should be implementing mandates for minimum recycled content for any plastics imported, and they should be mandating limits on the number of polymer variations. So put it in layman's term, the number of variations to the recipes or types of plastics that are manufactured. Because unfortunately the catch is to establish a good recycling industry, the difficulty is the more polymers, variations of polymers we have, the types of plastics, the harder it is to actually establish proper recycling supply chains and then the circular economy aspects for all the different types. And if you limited it down to less numbers of them, more specific ones, you could then facilitate much higher amount of recycling, which is incredibly important. Now, microplastics, of course, they are the much tinier pellets and smaller pieces of plastic, and they are more insidious and get into more areas. Essentially, it's a small piece of plastic less than 5 millimetres long, and they are found everywhere in all parts of our environment all over the globe. They've even made it into polar regions and in foods such as sea salt and beer, so it's everywhere. Studies around the world are showing that microplastics can carry harmful chemicals and toxins, but we're still learning the full extent to which microplastics may be harmful. And they're everywhere, and it is a reminder, sometimes technology might create progress, but sometimes it takes us backwards. There was a lot of concern raised about artificial turf when it comes to playing fields for sport, a lot of concerns about the plastic rubber that is used in play gym equipment. All of those uses of plastic do not we do not require adequate, protection of drainage around them, and so they leak into the environment, they leak into small particles, and that creates a huge amount of microplastic in the surrounding environments from those types of areas. So it's really important that the recommendations are addressing a number of issues in relation to this report, and I hope the government does take note of this. We also saw, of course, Indigenous communities and First Nations Australia's efforts in reducing plastics in our environment. So we have a lot of expertise, a huge amount of, I think, willingness. When I visit every school in Warringah, there's always plastic-free Wednesdays and days where there's, a focus by young people on limiting it. But clearly we need to sheet it back home to manufacturers who are still producing too much plastic and having too much in the system.